Ready to roll.
We're now streaming live on YouTube. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. We've got several in our panel today from Tutor Doctor. We have Jamie Locke from our Utah office, Jessica Bush from North Jersey, and Byron Zahm from Albuquerque. So we're pleased to be with you today. And today is Wednesday, July 19th, as we record this and bring this to you. But we hope the tips are timeless. So we've got a question that came into us, and it asks, what should my student do starting now and going through fall semester to get ready for college? So that was from a general question. We had a more specific one that says, my son is a junior. What, if anything, should he be doing to get ready? And it was that clause, if anything, that really was quite interesting, shall we say. So today what we're going to do is focus on the juniors and the seniors out there. And it's somewhat intuitive, stress-inducing, but intuitive as to what the seniors should be doing. So we'll be addressing that in just a moment. But first, Jamie, I wanted to kick that question over to you. What should a student who is a junior and their parents helping to guide in the process, and any other third parties you may wish to invite into the process, what should they be doing this fall semester, and perhaps even in what's remaining of summer leading up to that fall semester, to make sure that they're making progress toward their eventual college admissions goals?
Sure. And you're talking, to clarify, you're talking about they're going to become juniors, or they're juniors?
Yes, rising juniors.
Yeah, rising juniors, right? Yeah. So for rising juniors, they are going to be looking at hopefully test prep over the summer. It's the absolute best time, needless to say, and they should have completed all the necessary math. So it's going through the process, determining, is the ACT or the SAT the right test for me? All those different things should be approached during the summer, in my opinion. So how's everybody else feel about, I love that for a rising junior right now. Let's get on the test prep bandwagon and let's get ourselves prepared for what's coming.
Yeah, I would jump.
Yes, go ahead.
I jump in here too, and absolutely agree with with the test preparations that should begin now. But I think very important is the student ought to be scanning the college landscape, and finding out, hey, what schools, what programs am I interested in, and then contact not just the school but the specific departments about their admission requirements, because that gives the student a frame of reference of what they want to prepare for, or what goals they want to strive for and meet, right? Because if a school is looking for 1,300 and they're happy with a 1,250, well, that's not going to cut the mustard.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to add one more thing. A lot of parents are saying, well, the schools are all test optional. Do I still need to do test prep? And to tag along with what Byron said, in the specific department or college that the student is interested in getting into, if you've got an engineering student, a pre-med student, a health sciences student, OT, PT, they may have different requirements than the general school requirements. So you really have to know if that's something that you really want to get into, you need to know, because many of those colleges within the university still have testing requirements.
Yes. Oh, and that's important. In fact, that was the question I was going to ask Jamie a moment ago, is to, when parents say, do these tests even matter anymore? My kid's school counselor said that the tests don't matter. Not only if you're applying to the UC or the CSU campuses in California that are test blind, but anywhere, they just don't matter. And that's part of what we're having to re-inform people, is the pendulum is swinging back again. But in a broader question though, Jamie, how would you, and open to all the panel, but how would you, if you look at a pie chart, what would you recommend? Is it truly an either or of, I only have time for extracurricular activities, which are more important these days, or test prep, I can't do both? How would you answer the student or the parent that increasingly is saying that these days and thinking they don't have time to focus on both.
Yeah, I mean, as a father of 3 daughters that have gone through this process at this point, I think that for a rising junior, this is also the right time for them to have those skills where they can actually balance more than just one thing. I don't believe in the either or kind of argument around this. There's lots of work to be done. You know, if they're a soccer player or whatever, and they've got soccer camp all summer, you know, that tends to happen, you know, kind of going into your junior year, especially if you're a really good athlete. But the other side of that is the student does need to learn how to balance this, because if you throw in soccer, you know, in the fall, for example, or another sport in the fall, depending on where you're at, and test prep and, you know, upcoming, you know, class load, which is generally hardest for juniors anyways, I just think it's a better choice to be looking at figuring out how do we teach our student to, you know, get this balance right. And I just think it's less stress. And as a parent, I love less stress options, because, you know, like I said, going through this 3 different times with 3 different daughters, I've seen kind of multiple different ways to respond to it. And, you know me, you know, I love to plan. Byron, I loved your comment about the goal setting. Absolutely. You know, the more you plan, the more you talk and collaborate with your student. And, you know, the more that you've got goals and process down on paper, the easier and less stress-free I think this process becomes on both parents and students.
That's what families really appreciate about, you know, Tutor Doctor's approach, is that when we're building a relationship with the family, we're not just checking a box, right? So we're consulting with the family and helping them come up with an actual plan so that they can avoid finding themselves in a either or option, right? You know, it's like, hey, let's plan this out and figure out the best way to meet all the goals and requirements that we have. And, you know, we'll avoid that situation.
Yeah. And that's an important distinction, is having a plan versus not having a plan. And this is not to sort of assail or condemn anyone who hasn't had a plan and now finds themselves as the parent of a rising senior. And in some cases, you know, families, well, we don't know if my child's going to go to college or not, but all of a sudden now the spark has formed. So Jessica, you're aware over your many years of many people who have sort of fallen into this situation, late bloomers, if you will. So now with seniors in mind, you know, a couple of questions. One, is it too late to look at some extracurricular activities? And how are they going to balance that now in their very busy schedule with AP and honors courses, potentially college visits? And if they haven't started any test prep yet, what advice would you give to parents and students out there? And should they even consider a college counselor to help sort of offload and delegate some of this stuff out to a third party so the parent doesn't have to feel in the squeeze?
Good question, because senior year, rising seniors summer is the most important time, right? Because what happens on August 1st? The Common Application goes live. So they have to be on top of that. In my opinion, personally, having gone through it as well with many students and my daughter, they have to go on and get on the college app on August 1st. And so what you're saying is they haven't done any test prep. They haven't even thought about college till now. They got to get their butt in gear. I mean, they really do. I'm not even sure they have time for college visits, but you know, if their senior year maybe is a little bit lighter, some of them are a little bit lighter. Some of them, of course, have to cram in even more APs in senior year. They need to really hone in on a specific list now. And I always recommend college coaches and college advisors, 100%. It was the best money I've ever spent. And, you know, it's a great connection to have somebody walk your student through that entire process. But also the summer is also a good time to do you're not going to cram in any extracurriculars, but you could do a pre-college summer program, right? I mean, that happens in July. We're in that middle of that right now. So, you know, pre-college summer programs are unbelievable and they look really fantastic on your student's resume. So I know that a big one around here is the Johns Hopkins summer program. Many schools have summer programs. Even if you have a creative kid, my daughter did an FIT pre-college program, which was fantastic. And it actually convinced her that fashion design was something she did not want to go into, which in my opinion was great that we can see that ahead of time. You know, why have her go through a whole year or two of fashion design college when she can do a pre-college summer program and explore things that, and it's not too late for that, you know, and they also have pre-college programs during the school year that you can look at as well. Those are the things I really recommend.
Jessica, you brought up a really good point too, and maybe I'll throw this one over to Jamie. The whole panel, we can. One of the reasons people get into that situation is because their child didn't know what they wanted to do when they quote unquote grow up. They don't know what major, they don't know that, you know, where they want to go. And again, being sort of a late bloomer or trying things. To what degree do you think it's vital for a student to be in either a pre-college program or at least do some activities during their summers, and particularly between the junior and senior year, to sort of explore the world, find it, and what, going back to what can they do during the school year, what resources might they want to explore in their school counselor's office or things? I'm going to throw it over to Jamie because he's had 3 already go through this, and then maybe, you know, the remainder of our panel can sort of advise on experience as well. So really, what can they do to in the meanwhile, if they're not quite sure about college, are there some steps they can take right now so that once the epiphany happens, they're not going to be greatly behind?
Yeah, I can talk to that a little bit. So one of the things that we did with it's actually our youngest daughter, was we were able to enroll her for her senior year into the local community college. She got community college credit for the classes and allowed her to explore a couple of different things. So we went through interior design, for example. She was very into that for a while, learned that that wasn't something she wanted to follow up on in college as a result of that.
Yep.
Same thing with the architecture. So she took the classes at, you know, just as part of her senior year with the local community college. And I would 100% recommend that if it's just an exploration kind of a thing, it's a great way to do that. And you may get some college credit out of that could be transferable. But it was a great way to just help her see, what are these college programs going to look like? And is it for me? Is this something that I really want to buckle down with and actually learn a lot about? So that was just a little tip from my family in terms of the things that we saw.
Yep.
I can't emphasize the importance of, you know, getting that advocate. If you're a senior, it's not too late. Yes, you're going to have added pressure, you know, but having that advocate can help guide you and steer you through all the different choices that you have to make, you know, and knowing what those choices are and making good decisions about which ones you're going to prioritize is going to be helpful. So yes, find that advocate in your school counselor, or absolutely, well, one of the local Tutor Doctor franchisees would love to be able to help you. I can't overemphasize having that person at your side who you can look to, ask those specific questions. You're feeling pressured, you're not thinking clearly, you know, get a third, opinion, if you would, you know.
I want to add one more thing. And also when you were talking about all of this, Chris, I thought, what a perfect time to do some executive function sessions, right? Before you go to college, learn how to manage time and manage priorities and figure out when to do what. It's a perfect time before the kids go to college. If you have a rising senior, they have to work on these skills before they get to college.
Yeah, and how many times have those of us who are serving students with executive functioning needs, how many times have we heard from the parents saying, wow, this is a really good program. I think I need it also. You know? And it is interesting because we've heard that so many times. And Jessica, I'm glad you mentioned that, because there is a program. Tutor Doctor has a program named X Skills, which is available. As Byron said, contact your local Tutor Doctor office to find a little bit more about that. In fact, that goes further back in time. Middle school students are really some of the best beneficiaries of that, because they can put these principles into practice before they hit high school. So certainly with grades are a great beneficiary of having the right study skills and timing and all, but also all these other ancillary activities, extracurriculars, oh my gosh, test prep and college tours, what's that? And all these other things that you might have heard during this call today. And so it could seem daunting. So up to this point in our discussion right now, what I'm hearing is that number one, if you have a rising senior, it's not too late. You can't wait any longer, but it's not too late. And we are here to help you if you wish. For parents of rising juniors, it's time to get moving, as Jessica said earlier, and try to get those things in place so it won't become too late for you in the process. So I'm going to just ask sort of one final question in terms of the timing of this. What about for sophomores and freshmen, parents of rising sophomores and freshmen? Is it too early for them to start thinking about these things, or might there be some pre-prep things they could do or exploration? What would you recommend to parents of those earlier high school students?
I can start. Typically freshmen, I think it's such a big transition going into freshman year for a lot of students. They just really need to focus on their grades. They need to focus on their grades, and it's the perfect time to start executive function learning and skills. Sophomores, I would say this is what we did, and I recommend to all of our students, start looking at colleges in sophomore year in a really low-key, chilled kind of way. Drive around campuses, go on tours, check things out in sophomore year. This way, when you hit junior year, you're not scrambling to go visit all these places, and the kids are under serious pressure because of junior year. I took my daughter to a fantastic state college fair in sophomore year. Really low key. We walked around, we saw all these colleges, we met all these admissions people at a time when it was less stressed. I highly recommend that.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think the low stress part's important too, because especially for say a sophomore, it can't be that high pressure, like making them feel like, oh, you have to make a decision. It's like, do your research and make a decision. Maybe it goes towards, another question that I would love to ask this panel is, does your student need to know what they're going to do before they go to college? And if they don't, what are the ramifications or potential ramifications? We've got about 3 minutes left.
We could do a whole panel on just that.
I think we could, and every one of my daughters was different. That's why, maybe we'll hold that. Yeah, let's hold that and maybe do another panel on that one and get everybody's views on it. But
I think one of the dangers, is for kids going into high school is this kind of follow the herd mentality, and actually, what to Jessica's point, it's a great time to explore options. Absolutely. Right, without all the pressure, and open up and create those opportunities for you, because now you've got a year, 2, 3 years to narrow it down, right? Yeah. And so many kids are not sure, and so go out there, explore, find those options. And there was something else I was going to say, but I think I blanked here, so we'll figure it out another time.
One thing I would also recommend too is, and it was said earlier, but I want to reinforce it. Even if you've not yet made the decision for a college counselor, it's key to use the resources that you already have available to you and at no cost, which is your school guidance counselors. Now, they have a very difficult job. They're not, they have 300 to 1 or 500 to 1 ratios at some of the largest schools. So a freshman or sophomore might not have any proactive outreach to them. So if a freshman or sophomore wants more than just customary approval of their schedules, they can schedule time, approach their counselors, and schedule to ask some of these very questions we discussed today, to kind of start with sort of the course tuning that eventually through time will lead down to the fine tuning, like in a funnel. And that's really, Byron, I think, sort of encapsulating what you had mentioned a moment ago, and Jamie as well, And then Jessica, it had mentioned at the bottom of that funnel, really what should be the outputs by the time we get into the senior year timeframe. So make use of your school counselors. They will help. They're so busy, they're not going to, until it gets to the end of junior year and senior year, now they're chasing after your student and you as the parent. Oh my gosh, we didn't know this was due and all this other stuff. So that's why we wanted to have this discussion today, was just to bring out that there are a few things to consider. It doesn't need to be daunting. There's lots of support out there. You can even get some free consultation from your local tutor doctor office, as we've mentioned a few times. We're here to help. Plus, this very YouTube channel will have a number of ongoing discussions, as two new ideas were brought up in this discussion today of what we'll be bringing up in future discussions soon. So keep an eye out for us. Subscribe to our channel. That way you'll be notified of when our next discussions will be, and you can have your own private conversation with your local tutor doctor office. Byron, you had some information as to how folks can contact us.
Yeah, let me just add quickly, going into high school, that's a great time to start demonstrating some of your leadership skills and volunteer work, right? And if you can demonstrate those kinds of activities and ambition and initiative, at the beginning of your high school year, that really will help out. So yeah, as far as reaching out and contacting Tutor Doctor, we're all over the United States. So and elsewhere, believe it or not. But you can, right after this video here, you'll see down below, there'll be some contact information for your local Tutor Doctor franchise. So reach out to them directly, or you can go to tutordoctor.com. So thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate seeing you guys, and we'll look forward to next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.